Press is here. Okay, what do we want as a president? He or she needs to be a commander, a CO, as we say in the military, not a community organizer. Or you need to be a chief operating officer, not a community organizer that's out of it. He's out of touch. I'm sorry. I could not believe when somebody, his handler, I think her name was Nancy Pelosi, convinced him to do this medical bill, to do the health care, Obamacare, in this situation we're in. So I want to talk to you about a guy that was born in Brooklyn. He was raised in New York City. He went to school in New York, graduated in law from Manhattan College, became a U.S. attorney, and then went down to in New York, and then went down to Washington and fought crime on a basis that probably only Batman from the Gotham City has done as well. But after he went to practice, after leaving there, he went to practice for a few years and then decided to run for mayor. And I got a question for him. Does he like to warm up? Because the first time around, he missed by just a few votes. So maybe the mayor just likes to go and practice one time around. And maybe the second time, just like New York, one never knows. He won hands down in New York 2 times. And what he did for the city was pretty amazing. Became the safest city in America. And I don't know if many of you remember what Boston was like, but Boston was going for the same transition. It was pretty ugly when it came to crime and the city being dirty and taken over. He improved the city's business climate, leading New York out of a devastating recession. Does that sound familiar? I think that's a pretty good resume for anybody that's thinking, if they are thinking. He revolutionized the city in a system of government that is still studied today across the world, including the United States. He became, as we know why, Time Man of the Year. And we all know why. Just when he was ready to hand over the keys to a polished, beautiful city, safe, business-wise, he took people off of welfare and put them to work, created jobs when they were lost. 9/11 happened. There's only one person in this room that knows what he went through in 9/11, and that's me. Because I was very close to being the first pilot on American Airlines, to be in that first airplane. My family, like his family, got hurt. All the people I worked with, the company that I was so proud of, our safety record, got destroyed. We're at the front line of the war that started, this terrorist war, as well as New York City. I can tell you after we went flying again, the first time I went to fly the airplane back to LA, I was meant to fly to LA in the afternoon. I'll never forget walking into the airport and people looking at me going, is it safe? I can sympathize in a microcosmic way what it was like to be microscoped and have people look at you and go, where are we? Are we safe? What can you do? Is everything going to be okay? It's a different situation, and it's what defines men as leaders or losers. And Mayor Giuliani, I want to give you all my respect for being a great leader, and I want to introduce America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that very warm introduction. We've got to make sure that Fox stays up there. That's what we have. This is it. Should I listen to any other ones? First of all, I want to thank you for that very warm and very kind introduction and your reminder of September 11th. There's a gentleman sitting here, right there, right over here with the Never Forget pin on. Right here. Thank you for wearing it. I really appreciate that. And there's a firefighter here, Tim Brown. Tim, would you stand up? Tim was involved with the response on September 11, lost some of his very closest friends. And Jim has not forgotten. And you might have read about Jim. He's in a lawsuit right now trying to prevent the mosque at ground zero.
Oh.
So I want to thank Chairman Jack Kimball for the kind words, but also for spending time with me today and giving me advice. And I want to congratulate you on doing such a good job with the party. It's really important that this party remains strong. And I want you to know, as someone who lost in the New Hampshire primary, I'm in favor of New Hampshire being the first in the nation. Much easier if you win to be in favor of it. But even if you lost, you're in favor of it, because I think it's I'll tell you why, because I think it's a great test. It's a great, and it's a consistent test that has stood the test of time. Meaning you have to explain yourself, and you have to make yourself understandable, and you have to get people to realize what your message is. And if I could go back and redo what I did 4 years ago, there are about 45 things I would have done differently. But I would have just spent more time here, and run here the way I governed in New York, by holding town hall meetings. I think, Jim, I had 96 town hall meetings when I was mayor of New York City. I would do it once a month in a different community. I kept moving them around from community to community. I missed only 1 month, and that was September of 2001. And then I did 2 the next month. They were wonderfully entertaining. I had everything imaginable thrown at me. I had people who chained themselves to the chairs. For the first 6 months I was in office, I had a protest a day. And the other day, I was walking out of a restaurant in Manhattan, and a CBS reporter was waiting for me. And she said, "I have to talk to you, Mr. Mayor." I said, "Okay." And I thought, God, what happened? I don't know what happened. She said, "I want to ask you how do you think Mayor Bloomberg feels now that his approval ratings are down to 32%? So I looked at her, I smiled, and I said, "Been there, done that." I was at 32, and I was at 94, at different times being mayor. Twice I was over 90%, and more than twice I was below 35%. So I said to her, "Been there, done that, but 94 sure felt a lot better than 32. I want to really thank the mayor for spending so much time with me today. This is the toughest job anybody has. He used to have a tough job. Frank used to have a tough job. Now he's got, all those people he can fight with. And you got to make decisions, and they come and complain about them every day. None of them are ever right for everybody. But you see, that training is what someday, if you ever do it, it'll make you a good governor or a good president or a good chief executive of a company. And to be perfectly honest and blunt, which I always am, this is what our president lacks. He never was a mayor, or a governor, or ran a business, or a political party, or a military unit. Gee, what the hell did he do? I'm trying to remember. When I gave the keynote speech at the Republican convention, which people play back every once in a while, I said, you have to think of this as, interviewing somebody for a job. I mean, President of the United States is a job. Apparently now it's a job with lots of vacations, but it's still a job, and you get paid to do the job. And generally, I've hired, thousands of people for jobs. As the United States Attorney, as Associate Attorney General, as a partner in a law firm, as the owner of 2 different businesses. I don't know how many people I've interviewed. Numerous people for jobs. I always have a resume. And I always look for, do they have relevant experience? Like, if I'm going to hire a lawyer, did they graduate from law school? Did they pass the bar exam? And if they would like to go to court and try cases, have they had some experience trying cases in court? Because I'm not going to turn over sensitive cases for the United States of America to someone who has never been in a courtroom. And if I hire someone for my security business, I hire an ex-police officer, an ex-FBI agent, an ex-CIA agent, if they admit they were CIA agents. Like they have to have experience with security. I have to admit, I would not hire a community organizer for my security business. There's nothing against the community organizers. They can go organize communities, but they can't handle security. Well, the President of the United States had no qualifications for this job, and we elected him anyway. And it's worse than we thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's worse than we thought. He really seems like he doesn't know what he's doing. Over the last week and a half, I have never witnessed a worse case of a presidential decision-making, or lack of decision-making, or conduct of foreign policy, ever. And I worked for 2 presidents, met probably the last 5 or 6, worked closely with Bill Clinton when I was the mayor, and did a lot of positive things with Bill Clinton, a Democratic president, Republican mayor. Here's what I mean. A week or 10 days ago, he decides that Gaddafi has to go in Libya. He may be right or wrong about that. You can debate that, you know, should Gaddafi have gone, shouldn't he have gone? I think he was right, but some people think he was wrong. That isn't my point. The President of the United States made a firm, strong statement. Gaddafi must go. Next question he was asked is, what are you going to do about it? Did I say he had to go? My goodness, why did I say that? Then, one of those really traditionally, historically strong, kind of aggressive countries, France, said, you should have a no-fly zone. Our president, the leader of the free world, said, a what? Oh, that's really hard. That's hard. No-fly zones are really hard. I mean, after all, our military is stretched, and this is an Arab country. Guess he didn't remember that when he told Gaddafi that he had to go. Must have thought it was Long Island. Like he didn't know before. He didn't know before he said, Gaddafi must go. Even the name kind of gives you a hint. Maybe he thought he was Italian. Ends in a vowel. This would be really funny. But I'm not exaggerating this. This is extraordinary. Then the Arab League, I think 12 Arab countries, begged him for a no-fly zone. Now he's got France, which when I heard that France wanted a no-fly zone, I'm not usually caught for words. I spent like half hour laughing. Lucky I wasn't asked the question immediately. I would have doubted the sanity of the reporter. But it was true. France wanted a no-fly zone. The Arab League wanted a no-fly zone. President still can't decide. Then England, and then of course, this is what really made it the United Nations.
Yeah.
Wanted a no-fly zone. Now that got his attention. And now, today, yesterday we agreed, and today the President gave a very forceful speech about our no-fly zone, and very subtly changed his position. And I don't know if the press, which gives him, with one exception, loving treatment, noticed this. The president who, a week or 10 days ago, was in favor of Gaddafi must go, is now in favor of Gaddafi must have a ceasefire. It sounds to me like we changed our position, doesn't it? And if we have a ceasefire, maybe we don't have to do the no-fly zone. Okay. Now, I've joked around about this, but let me get serious about it. Do you realize that every day that our president was incapable of making a decision about something that he aggressively put out there, not something he was forced to do, something he apparently hadn't thought out? People died. Every single day, more people died than had to die because the President of the United States gave them encouragement. The President of the United States told them, "We're with you!" And they went to the ramparts and fought for their freedom and got killed and slaughtered by Gaddafi while Obama dithered. That's a president? That's what we want in this country?
No.
Can we stand 2 more years of this? Well, we're going to have to. Can we stand 6 more years of this? We don't have to.
No.
We do not have to. And it's up to you and it's up to me. It's up to the Republican Party. It's not about politics. It's way beyond politics now. This president has been... I really find it hard to say this because I really feel bad about this. This president has been a failure in just about every single thing that he's done. He has ruined our economy. He is ruining our health care. Obamacare is bad. Obamacare is going to get much worse. It's going to get much worse. And it's also another example of lack of leadership. President Obama didn't pass Obamacare. President Obama didn't even write Obamacare because he wanted Congress to lead. Because he's a follower. He is, in the words of Sean Hannity, somebody who, when he was in the state legislature, most often voted present. You don't get to vote present as a president. We know you're president, now you got to decide. And instead of crafting Obamacare, he left it to Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. They write it, he comments. And what we get is a disaster, an absolute disaster. Americans are going to be required to have to buy health insurance. We know that, and we know that's being challenged constitutionally, and God willing, it's going to be declared unconstitutional. But it's worse than that, because it isn't just that Americans have to buy health care. If Obamacare becomes the law or remains the law, you have to buy the health care that Washington tells you you have to buy. They get to make a big list of what has to be in your health care insurance policy. And you are mandated not just to have health care, but to have the health care that they say you must have. This is the reason that the mandate in Massachusetts cost 3 times more than was estimated when it was first passed. And you can go back to debates here in New Hampshire, and I predicted that, and so did Mike Huckabee, that that mandate would cost not the unrealistic small number that was being predicted, but 3 times more. Now, why did I know that? I knew it because I had experience, because I ran a hospital system. I ran the 2nd largest public hospital system in the United States, the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation. I was never given a single figure about health care that wasn't off by 90%. Ever. And I knew that the devil was in the details. If I say, you must have health care, and that's all I say, and I don't define health care, you can go buy a health care policy with a premium of $100, and it will cover only an ingrown toenail. It will not cover anything else. It could be health care. You get to define it. So in order to escape the tax, the mandate, the fine, the whatever, the state of Massachusetts or the state of New York or the federal government gets to tell you what is health care. It must cover psychiatric conditions. It must cover bicycles, because bicycles are good for health. It must cover counseling. It must cover whatever they want to make it cover. And that's why it goes from the modest amount that they put in when they passed the legislation to make it look good, and then it becomes the monstrous amount that it turns out to be when you actually have to pay the bill. That is going to happen with Obamacare. That's the reason insurance companies are charging higher premiums now because they anticipate that happening. And what we need instead is a president who, with a Republican House and a Republican Senate, on day one, submits a bill submitted by the administration with the leadership of the president. Man, that would be really intriguing, to have a president lead again. With the leadership of the president submits a bill to repeal Obamacare once and for all. Every single party. And replace it with just the opposite. Let's go private. Let's go in the direction of disentangling the government from medicine as much as possible and empowering the private sector and private markets and private decision-making to straighten out the cost of health care. Give people tax deductions so they can purchase their own health insurance. Give them health savings accounts, high deductibles if they want it. Allow them to purchase health insurance all over the country. You find a cheaper policy in Idaho, buy the policy in Idaho. You find a better policy in Texas, get the one from Texas. I find a better one in New Hampshire, I'll buy the one from New York and New Hampshire. We get all 50 states competing with each other for the lowest price and for the most customers, not for the highest price dictated by the government. And once and for all, let's do something about lawsuits against doctors. These are the things that we have to do. This is what Republican House of Representatives wanted to do. When we were being called the party of no by the liberal press and the Democrats, our answers to health care are there. They just don't like our answers. Because our answers move us away from socialized medicine and restore and continue to build on what is unique about America. Not about Europe, but about America, which is a private healthcare system. The other countries in the world have public healthcare systems. We are the only one, or just about the only one, who has preserved a big private system. How come the king of Saudi Arabia came to America for health care and didn't go to England? How come he didn't go to Canada? Why did he go to Mexico? Why didn't he stay in Saudi Arabia? How come he didn't go to Russia? You know why. Because for all of its inequities, and we have them, for all of its faults, and we have them, we've got the best healthcare system in the world. And why do we do? Not because of the part the government runs, but because of the private part. The king didn't come to a veterans hospital. He didn't come to a New York City-owned hospital. He came to a, here's the word, private hospital. And that's the glory of America. That's how we produce things, in the private sector. And when we say, you know, the government is the problem, Ronald Reagan says that. Government is wonderful. Government is terrific if it empowers the private sector. Government's the problem when it crushes the private sector. And this government, for the last 2 years, is crushing the private sector more than has ever been done in the history of this country. That is not an exaggeration. That is a fact. And if we don't change that, our economy is not going to grow again, no matter how hard we try. And you have the opportunity to change it if we make the right choices. I'll give you another example. We have to expand energy in the United States. We've got to be more independent, right? We've got to bring down the cost of energy. And over the next 30 years, America probably needs 30% more in terms of sources of energy. So we can grow. In the last week, the Democrats did the following, from the president to the people in the House and Senate. A senior member of the House of Representatives, a Democrat, called for halting development of any new nuclear power plants. Okay, we understand why, right? I understand what's going on in Japan. That's okay. At the same time, several Democratic members of the House and Senate are conspiring, and one has introduced legislation to try to stop hydraulic fracturing. What's hydraulic fracturing? Hydraulic fracturing is a wonderful new method with certain risk, everything has risk, of extracting natural gas from way down deep in the earth. And we happen to have, it turns out, thank God, more of it than maybe any place in the world. And we've just found it. And it goes from upstate New York all the way down to Tennessee. And there could be an unlimited amount of natural gas, which we no longer will have to import from Qatar or other places. This is like good news to any sensible American. They want to stop it, limit it, halt it. We don't allow it in New York because we're afraid of it. And now the Democrats in Congress want to stop that. Finally, just so we don't miss any of the bases, the EPA, run by President Obama, has now issued a regulation virtually halting, or certainly putting a big reduction on the production of coal, and certainly no expansion of the production of coal, by imposing regulations that will cost well over $10 billion more per year. Which means, very simple, we're going to be selling coal to China and to India, because we won't be able to produce it in the United States. Okay, why am I telling you all this? Here's why I'm telling you this. Here are the sources of our electricity. I wish I was Glenn Beck with a blackboard. Maybe I should tell this to Glenn Beck, because he'd do it on his blackboard. 50% of our electricity comes from coal. 20% of our electricity comes from nuclear power. 20% of our electricity comes from natural gas. Quickly, that adds up to 90% of our electricity. We just stopped expanding in each one of those areas. So, how is President Obama going to expand? In that 10% that is left.
Hot air.
Okay. You're almost right. 9% of that 10% is hydroelectric power, and the environmentalists oppose building any more hydroelectric power plants. We're down to 1%. We're going to expand to 1%. Wind and solar make up 1% of our electric power. I passed your wind thing here in New Hampshire. So 10 minutes passing it. It didn't move. I was thinking as mayor of New York, if I was dependent on wind instead of Indian Point nuclear plant, we would be constant blackout. Everybody would be going around in the dark. But
then you increase the birth
we
rate.
need a president who is going to be able to sketch a policy for us that has us expanding. Now, I know that some of the not very serious people in certain aspects of the ideologies that exist don't get this, but he just cut off all expansion. We can't expand. Rhetoric doesn't expand you. Reality does. We'll expand if we use more coal and figure out a better way to use it. If we don't want to do that, we're going to have more nuclear power plants, even if there's a certain amount of risk. If we don't want that, then we're going to have to expand liquid, we're going to have to expand natural gas. We're not going to do it with wind and solar. We could 10 times the amount of wind and solar, and we get to 10%. And then on windy days, we have nothing. And on cloudy days, I don't know what we would do. We'd have to use fur coats. Oh, but you can't do that either, I forgot. I forgot, you can't use fur coats. Well, I could go on and on and on, and I can tell you more about foreign policy, but here's what we have to do. As Republicans, we have to be real sure that we conduct a primary, which I may or may not be a part of, haven't decided it. What I have decided is I want to do everything I can to make sure that we have a president who has the kind of vision and the kind of love of this country and the kind of dedication to American exceptionalism and the innate understanding that we're the greatest country on earth. And I don't say that to brag. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that almost like a prayer because I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. You are too. We all are. We're born in the greatest country in the history of the world. And, it's our parents who had us born here, not us, so we don't get any credit for it. All we get is the responsibility to make it greater. When I became mayor the second time, I promised that my obligation was to hand the city over stronger and better than it was handed to me. I borrowed that from Fiorello LaGuardia, who borrowed it from the Greek philosophers. And I worked every day to do that. I don't discount Barack Obama's goodwill. I just think he thinks differently than we do. But here's the result, whatever you attribute it to. This country is not stronger than it was 2 years ago. This country is not better than it was 2 years ago. And this country doesn't believe in itself anymore. And that is a tragedy. Because we have everything we need to believe in ourselves. We're the strongest country on earth. We're the richest country on earth. We've moved the most people out of poverty. And they say we haven't been fair to the poor. Of course sometimes we haven't. Of course we haven't done everything that we should do. We're not perfect. But what country in the history of this world has moved more people out of poverty than the United States?
That's right.
Why would the president look to Europe for his economic model? When he's got the best economic model that human beings ever created in this country? Why would we think of things that reek of socialism when it's been capitalism, with all of its imperfections, that have moved people out of dire poverty? Why are we afraid of China? Why does the president seem timid in dealing with China? They hold a lot of our debt. Well, first of all, how about this? They hold a lot of our debt. We better succeed, or they're really going to be screwed. Our GDP is 4 times theirs. When we think about, China is challenging us as a world power, this has got to be in your head. This is not reality. We are 4 times their GDP. That doesn't account for the fact that they have 700 million people in dire poverty. They have a big middle class, about the size of ours, 300 million, 400 million. But they have 700 million people who are in dire poverty and are being exposed to that same internet that is creating the revolutions in the Middle East. What the heck do you think it's going to do in China next year and the year after and the year after that? They have to manage their way through that. Economists believe that that effectively makes our GDP 10 times theirs. Because we don't have to overcome that problem. We got our problems, but we don't have to bring 700 million people out of poverty. We have brought most of, if not all of our people out of poverty. We probably brought them all out of poverty defined by the Chinese standard. So there's no comparisons between the two of us, unless we're these Americans who blame America first, like Ambassador Kirkpatrick used to say. Unless we're Americans who just can't accept the fact that this is a great country and have to constantly criticize it. This is a great country. It's got the greatest economy in the world. And when the President of the United States sits back and waits for France and for England and for Germany and for the Arab League and for the United Nations, instead of making the decisions on his own, he is ceding our place as the leader of the world. And that's bad for the world, because there's no other country that can lead this world as decently and as altruistically as we can. There's never been a country that's been the prime power in the world that has been as decent and as altruistic as we've been. And if we cede that place, this is going to be horrible. I'll leave you with one last thought that proves this. And it comes out of the last week. There's this big worry all through the Bush administration. All the Democrats would say, oh, they hate us in the Arab world, and look at all these things we're doing, and they don't think we're powerful anymore. And America doesn't mean anything anymore, and look how we're frittering away. Well, who did the Arab League ask to lead and run and organize the no-fly zone to protect the Arab people in Libya? They didn't ask France to do it. I got 4 planes. The last one they flew on a military mission, probably the Second World War. They didn't ask the United Nations. The United Nations doesn't have an air force, thank God. Who do they ask to do it? The country they're supposed to hate so much. But the one they trust to do something like this and not colonize, and not take over territory, and not plunder, and not take oil out of the ground and seek it for our own benefit. I don't know if we realize how good we are. We've lost American lives in Kuwait. We've lost American lives in Iraq. You make it any other country, that country would have stolen the oil of Iraq and of Kuwait. Has America taken any oil? No. Has America taken any property? Has America colonized anywhere? Will we stop criticizing ourselves so much? And can we once again have an administration and a president who sees the exceptionalism in this country, who sees the wonderful things that we do, and gets our people to lift their eyes up and point them toward the future and realize that we're going to be a greater country 10 years from now than we are today. And that's going to be better for us, it's going to be better for our children, and it's going to be better for the world if we're a greater country 10 years from now rather than a lesser country. And for that, we need leadership. And to get that leadership, we need a Republican Party that unites. We got a lot of great candidates. I do not know who the best one is. I have a few ideas. But I really don't know who the best one is. And the best one can get to prove himself or herself here in New Hampshire. And let's try to fight this primary out with our eye on the ball. You know, we got some differences. Look at all these candidates. I like some things about them. Some I like a lot, some not as much. Some I agree with mostly, disagree with somewhat. But I can tell you this. It's like the lady told me about 2 months ago in an airport in Miami. She came up to me and she said, "Oh, you're Mayor Giuliani." I said, I am. And she said, "Oh, you'd be a much better president than Barack Obama." She had a big smile on her face, and she thought I was going to give her a big hug and kiss. And I said, "That's not even a compliment." I mean, I'm working on people I even hardly know that will be better presidents than Barack Obama. Every one of those Republicans that I hear about, think about, or even dream about would be a better president than Barack Obama. So the real question is, let's conduct a primary in which we get the right ideas out, the right mandate out. We lift the feelings of the American people about themselves. We give them confidence in themselves again. And then we select the right candidate who's got the best chance of winning. And I want to work with you to do that, one way or the other. I love my time in New Hampshire. I really do regret that when I ran 4 years ago, I didn't spend more time here, because I really enjoyed it. A lot of reasons for it. You'll read it in my next book. But I want to thank you very, very much. I want to thank Wayne in particular, because he has done so much. I want to thank the congressman, who was one of my chairmen and stuck with me in good times. And I want to tell him how proud I am of him. He's a really terrific member of Congress, and he's got a great Congress that he's not now a part of. I want to tell Jack that I really admire very much the campaign that you waged. As an outsider, we need that. We need that kind of change. I want you to know that my view of the Tea Party is that the Tea Party is one of the best things that's happened to American democracy in a very, very long time. It has its flaws. So does the Republican Party. So does the Democratic Party. So do I. But it's a reaction, I think, to not only too much spending, higher taxes, all this other stuff. It's a reaction to something very, very fundamental and very emotional and very deep in the American soul. People in the Tea Party, like me, believe that their freedom is being taken away.
Right, right.
Nobody takes our freedom away.
That's right.
I think that's why that is so emotional and why it's so strong. And they have taken our freedom away. When we can't decide whether we can have health insurance or not, you just took my freedom away. When you get to tell me how I have to spend my money, you just took my freedom away. And there are so many other things in which they're trying to do that. And I want to thank Mayor Gassis, because we've got a great city, and he's a tough guy. And I called Governor Walker today, you know, in Wisconsin, because they ended up putting some kind of temporary restraining order on his new law, and I told him that he would like you very much because you sound just like him. And I love that we have governors like that now. I remember when I served as mayor, there weren't too many like Governor Walker and Governor Christie, and guys that had big. Well, this isn't Brooklyn. I'm not. You know what I mean. These are tough guys, and they know what they believe in. And we need a president like that. So I hope to be able to work with you and make sure that that's what we get in 2012. And there's no better place to vet out this kind of exceptional leader that we're going to need than New Hampshire. And I know you do a really good job of it. Remember, 2008, you selected John McCain. He was a really honorable, decent, wonderful choice. You can be proud of who you nominated. He's a great American with a great history, and this country would be a lot different if John McCain were in the White House. You can have voted for him, voted for me, or voted for somebody else, but when we nominated John McCain, I was very proud of us. Now, you should also be very proud of New Hampshire, because you did not select Barack Obama. And I'm going to say something that I will deny I ever said. Hillary Clinton would have been better. Thank you very much.